Hi there, welcome everybody. I want to talk about the mind and the brain. When we talk about the mind and the brain, normal human conversation, we tend to think they're the same thing, but they're not. I remember having a discussion with a doctor, and she was adamant that the mind and the brain were the same, and I was having this talk with her and saying, no, the brain is an organ, but the mind is actually an energetic part of us, and it doesn't live in the brain. It can live outside the brain, and we had this quite a discussion that didn't really go anywhere. The thing I want to explain to you today is from an energetic point of view, that the brain is the actual organ, and yes, it has its own energy, so it has an energetic chakra, because every organ has its own chakra, and that is the brain. However, in the brain lies the mind, and the mind is an energetic part of us, and the mind emanates from the brain possibly, and then it goes right out into our aura. It is an energy. The mind is an energy, and it resides in the brain. Once you start to see it that way, you'll kind of start to understand things. It makes an explanation for telepathy and for astral travel. It also makes explanations for why we can go and connect into the universal mind. Our mind is actually fluid, it's energetic, it moves in, out, it can travel, it can go across time, it can go across space. And that's why I can talk to people who are on the other side, because I'm using my mind to talk to them, and I'm crossing the other dimensions. I don't use my brain in terms of I use my brain for translation and to talk to the other human who's here, the live one, but I'm not actually using my brain to connect, I'm using my mind to connect. Energetically, our mind is very powerful, and our mind actually runs the whole system. And when we die, we take our mind with us, but we don't take our brain, because that's a physical thing in the human body. So once we die, the brain remains, but the mind goes with us, and that's the conscious and subconscious mind, and we take it with us, with our soul body. The mind has the power that, because it can move between time and space, we can do many more things with the mind than we can with the brain. It has a incredible elasticity to it energetically. It vibrates at a certain rate as well, and we can actually make the vibration greater and greater. The more spiritual and energy work we do, the expands the mind energetically and vibrationally. So anything you do, meditation, for example, and I actually think hypnosis will actually expand the mind and make your mind vibrate at a higher rate. People who are very smart will have a highly functioning brain that's working well physically, but they'll also have a highly functioning mind. And when you put those two together, of course, it's going to be a really good mix. When people get dementia, what happens is the actual brain starts to deteriorate, and with it, then it affects the mind. So they sort of go together. So what happens to one will happen to the other. When I check someone with dementia, their brain energy is very small. It gets smaller and smaller, and that affects the mind. So I think it begins in the brain first in some ways, because the brain always looks, when I look, someone who's got dementia, Alzheimer's, their brain's got all little cobwebs in it. It's a funny way to say it, but it looks like little cobwebs, and they're all getting in the way of all the pathways. We can actually move to other dimensions, as I said, using our mind. So if we want to go to other places, we can go to other places with our mind. We know we do that anyhow, because if we want to recreate or remember a memory, when we sit and daydream, that's the mind moving. We then have those memories, and the mind can expand to that place and remember when we were there and how it was. And that's happening with the brain and the mind. It's important to look after your brain, because your brain influences the mind so much, and that means making sure that you take care of yourself, also eat well and do all the vibrational things and the healing to make you better. I do the one where I bring the light into my actual brain, because I know that affects my mind. So I'll bring it in, and you can do it two ways. You can just see yourself filling your whole brain up with light. Sometimes you can actually feel I've actually felt the bones in the head kind of move. It's a really weird feeling. And sometimes you get like a boom feeling in your actual brain. You can also fill up one side and the other side. I usually do the back and then the front. So that's a vibrational practice you can do to bring more light and high vibrational energy healing into the brain. Because if we keep the brain vibrating at a high rate, that's going to only be good for the mind. When you start to think this way and you start to see them as two separate but overlapping working parts in your body, it'll help you a lot. And you'll actually start to understand why when people get ill, have mental illness, and that it's emanating from one of those two places. We can also send healing to our mind and calmness to our mind. I usually do that one because I think it's good. And I do the affirmations where I tell my mind that I'm getting better and I'm getting stronger and I'm getting more healthy. As I spoke in the other podcast about the subconscious, what we tell ourselves subconsciously is laid down like the foundation of our mind and our thinking. So we want to make that foundation good and strong. The mind is something too that can connect in with other people's minds. So when we're having telepathic conversations, we're not talking brain to brain, we're actually talking mind to mind. Therefore, when you're telepathically thinking about your friend and then they ring you up, that's a mind-to-mind connection. The thought might be in your brain as well, but it's actually mind-to-mind. And when we send healing, we're using our mind, we're not using our brain. So we're thinking of that we're going to send pink light or blue light or healing to their heart, and that's where we're sending it to the actual person through our mind. So a lot of the stuff that we're actually doing through healing, and that is also through our aura, but it's actually through our mind because we have to think it, don't we? For example, when I talk to people who've passed, I'm using my mind. And when I'm tuning into the person's body, when I'm doing the healing, I'm using my mind. I feel that we give too much credit to the brain down here and not enough credit to the mind. Our mind is a powerful entity capable of doing much more than we think it can do. And what we think mentally does really affect our entire system, particularly our body and all the organs. It's like the foundation of who we are, the mind. You can also use your mind to connect into the spiritual realms. For example, if you want to go and visit the healing rooms, you can do that with your mind and you'll go there. Your aura will go with you, you'll go as well, but mentally you can start there. And you can go and visit the libraries in the sky, the universal libraries, to get more information. When we speak to our God or our guides and angels, we're using our mind. We're not actually using our brains so much. So we're speaking to them telepathically so we can cross those dimensions. And when we get the message back, it's coming across that dimension. Because the brain is so affected by time and then space, it has a limitation on the brain, whereas the mind doesn't have those kind of limitations. And energetically, the brain is in situ, it's kind of in your head, and that's where it is, but the mind isn't. The mind can go actually anywhere. And we can also travel at night this way. A lot of people do astral travel mentally. I haven't explored that a great deal, but I know that I've landed up doing healing on people at night because they've told me that they saw me in their bedroom in a white dress or something. That was their human telling me. So these things do actually happen. Start to do some work on your mind. You can, just like the brain, you can fill your mind up with positive energy. You can fill your mind up with white light. I fill my mind up with love because loving is also about how we think about people. So I fill my mind up with love. If you do any work on the subconscious, the previous podcast I've just done is about the subconscious and also about the blocks there and some of our negative thought forms that are lodged there. You can also send healing and love, particularly love to the subconscious and love to the mind, because love is an energy which resides in our mind. We think about the person, we love the person, and then we say it. So you can see that the mind can be healed as much as the brain can be healed. The more work I think we do on our mind as well, the more it affects our brain. They're interwoven. It's like if the picture you saw, you have the brain and the mind sitting together, with the brain sort of caught in your head, and then it emanates right out. So anything that happens to one or the other is going to affect it. I think once you start to see it in this way and understand it, you will actually expand your mind. And that's the other thing, you can actually expand your mind. And by expanding your mind, you can get more information. When I meditate, I'm not using my brain, actually, I'm using my mind. And when I'm asking them to download more information from my podcasts or my books, they aren't using my brain, they're using my mind. And I can actually feel the download coming in. And you can ask for downloads into your mind about things, say if you're writing or painting, or if you're learning something at uni even, you can ask them to download the information into your mind, and then you'll just find you just know things. I would just find I just knew things. I didn't know how I knew them, because I knew I hadn't read them with my real brain. I just knew them. And then I'd actually have to go and look them up. Like I'd say to someone, well, you need to take this essence, flower essence. And then I'd have to go and look it up and see what it was actually for, because my human had no idea what that obscure essence did. The mind is the builder. The mind builds our life and directly affects our body. That's very important for you to understand. So what you're thinking, your body will hear it and your body will react accordingly. So if you keep telling yourself you're not well and you're sick and you're never going to get better, your body goes, oh, okay, so we're not going to be well, and we're not going to get better, and your body will hear that, and then your body will act accordingly. We can heal ourselves. Of course, we have our coming in date, and then we do have a few exit dates, our use by dates. There are always a few, but at the end of our life, that will be the end of our life. However, in between, we can change things, and we can really change how we think and how we react to things and how we respond to things, and how we can heal our minds and heal ourselves. Do some work on your brain, filling it up with the light, etc., like I said, and then do the work on your mind. It's a vibrational practice. You won't be able to really prove it, but you'll just start to feel differently, and you might start to see a shift in your thinking. That's the biggest one I found. There was a shift in my thinking, and that showed me that now I was actually healing my mind as well as my brain. So I'm wishing you a lovely week, and I'm sending you lots of love and light, especially to your mind and your brain.